Good evening, Endurance School, and welcome to Detention, the place where you think about what you've done. Tonight, we are really excited to have Carrie Lester and Scottie Defillipis here with us. Carrie Lester is a professional triathlete from Brisbane, Australia, and Scottie Defillipis is a former professional triathlete who grew up in New Jersey. The couple lives in Southern California, where they also run KIS coaching together. Carrie Lester is an 8-time Ironman champion, has been at the top 10 at Kona twice. She's won too many 70.3 races to count and was the 2009 ITU age group champion at both the Olympic and long distance races.
Scottie, you've got to follow that. Scottie Defillipis was a professional triathlete who has been on the podium over many iron distance races around the world, including Penticton, Florida, and Atlantic City. His Ironman PR is a blistering 8:09, and he has compiled 5 victories, 16 podium appearances, and over 20 top 5 finishes. These days, Scottie focuses on the coaching company that he and Lester run and on helping create the Professional Triathletes Organization. Carrie and Scottie, welcome to Detention.
Hello.
Well, I guess we should say thanks. It's nice to be here in detention.
Thanks for announcing that I'm retired, by the way.
So we've had debates with people about this in the past. We used to introduce people always as professional athlete, and we've been corrected now twice by people who we maintain that, like the president, you were always you were never a former president, you were always a professional athlete, but we've been corrected on that one. So yeah, that's
I figured because when I said, "Where are you racing this year?" in an email a few weeks ago, you were like, "I'm retired, man." that was fair game.
I always felt like I'd never publicly say it because it just sounds cliche, but yeah, I think it's my racing days are over.
Yeah. The great cliche that champions get to retire. The rest of us simply just stop.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's so true.
But with some wins to your credit, Scottie, you do get to retire. So you are a champion. You do get to retire. So first question, guys. This is going to be fun tonight because we have 2 responses for all of these. Is this your first time in detention or suspension?
You want me to go first? Well, you triggered a memory that I had forgotten. I went to an all-boys school in Penticton, New Jersey called St. Joseph's, and I actually transferred out my last year, and I knew I was leaving, and I must have gotten the reason I left was because my brother was coaching in another Catholic school not far from Red Bank, New Jersey, Molly.
Oh, lovely.
And I think I got in trouble for not wearing a belt or something. One of the lunch ladies ratted me out, and then I had to go to the vice principal, and I remember specifically cursing him out, and I got detention for a week. Yeah, Mr. Anderson was his name. I remember that. And I had to go see the dean, Mr. Dandy.
Mr. Dandy was the dean. That's too
Dandy
perfect.
Funny that I can remember that.
I think I have a pretty clean record. The only thing that I am thinking about, and I can remember vaguely, I'm really not sure, is I actually went to an all-girls school as well. And when you left in the afternoon, there was always people at the gate that would be checking your uniform as you left. And that, you had to have the hat. In winter, you had to wear a blazer. You couldn't just wear a sweater. You had to have, if you wore a sweater, you had to have a blazer over the top, particularly if you were using public transport. And I think I got the detention for enough strikes about not having the right attire. That's the only thing that I think I got detention for.
I know. I was going to say both of you guys have had uniform infractions.
Uniform infractions. That's yeah.
That's
Would that happen
solid.
these days? I don't think so. I mean.
Oh, well, it would certainly happen in an Ironman branded race with the bizarre skin suit rules. Men can't zip down their jerseys, but women can race in sports bras. It's the no nipples rule.
So This is kind of our pandemic project. This is something that we got started with just over a year ago now. So we've been running these interview shows and streaming workouts and sweating on our bicycles on the internet. What has this last year made time for you guys to do that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise? What's been made available to you through the kind of odd year that we've been living through?
Well, it retired me.
That's right. That's right.
I really wanted one more year, and it was taking everything inside of me to get going before the pandemic. And I managed to get pretty fit, but then it obviously hit, and when it set in, yeah, we took last year real cruisy. I'm still training like quite a bit. I'm Carrie's sparring partner.
He's my whipping boy officially now.
But we started surfing again, which was super cool. And I started playing golf again. I played golf as a kid. So, what about you, Kaz? You took the year down, just more sort of active recovery.
Yeah, I mean, as the year went on last year, and we really saw that it was the year was just going to be a wash. At first, I think many of us were not really in denial, but if you know what I mean, like we were hoping that everything will be opening back up by June, and we'll be able to have the back end of the year. So I think many of us were kind of staying positive. And in hope, but then as the year went on and it looked like the whole year was, it was over, and we weren't going to be traveling to Europe, then, I just enjoyed the time at home over the summer. We've never actually been at home for a summer. We travel every year, usually to Switzerland. We leave around May, and we don't come back until August and September. So, it was nice to just have the summer at home.
Which, by the way, if you've ever spent a summer in San Diego,
it was actually not very nice.
It's not the nicest place.
Oh, no.
People don't realize that. Yeah.
The weather wasn't great. And, it wasn't really busy because of COVID, but I think maybe in another year it would have probably been, pretty popular for people on vacation, where we live. So I don't know. It was nice to just be at home, but it actually made me really appreciate our trips to Europe, and how much I actually do miss it, because it was wearing on me, packing up every year and doing that whole trip. It was exhausting. It was nice to have just a chilled out year.
That's great.
The pandemic, like you said, has made us aware of so many things, like grateful for the things that we have had. Has the past year changed the way that you guys either work or train? Is there anything that you have done in response to the pandemic that you wouldn't have done or taken for granted before?
Probably, swimming is still a problem. We make swimming a very big priority, just the way we use it for aerobic support, recovery. We're still limited. Like, we have to go through Carrie does it all. I don't even know how the app works.
Scottie's never made one swim reservation this whole pandemic. And I gave him my phone once. I was running and I said, here's my phone. The app's there. It's ready to go for you. All you need to do is right at 9:15, you need to get on and book the swim lane, because it'll be gone in 30 seconds. And sure enough, he didn't get it.
Well, yeah. I was 35 seconds.
One job.
I was 5 seconds late,
and it didn't happen. So I took control. And anyway, but the swimming has definitely been one of the things I've appreciated, and really we missed it a lot for that 3 months there that we couldn't get into any pools, because we realized that it really sets the structure for our day for 5 or 6 days a week. Getting up and swimming at 8 or 9 o'clock, that was when we started our day. So when the swim was taken away, we were replacing it with crazy long rides, just to kind of keep ourselves busy, or running, or surfing if we could, but it just wasn't the same.
It started blowing out too. Like, there were some days where you get up, you're like, well,
we're gonna go riding again.
Ride it.
yeah, definitely.
What were you going to do? Everybody else was sitting around like doing whatever. You weren't supposed to go anywhere. But remember the first couple weeks, we started riding like maniacs too. We thought, 2 weeks. And then they say like, that's it. We'll be back to normal.
Yeah.
So we were riding like, I don't know, 20, 30 hours a week. We'd go out and do like an 8-hour ride. We rode all day just to get out of the house and exhaust ourselves, And then, as it set in, we kind of pulled back and started surfing.
Scottie, did it change anything for you in terms of like running the business and coaching?
I mean, we had to circle the wagons. Like I'm sure you lost athletes, and you've come up with a creative way to do something different with the podcast. We did a few virtual Zoom type things, but other than that, I've adjusted this year with the swim. Other than that, I've tried to keep people going the same way. So not really, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So your company is called Keep It Simple Coaching. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you named it that, and some examples maybe of athletes who try to overcomplicate things?
Well, we were both coached by Brett Sutton, and Brett was, my mentor for 5 years, and we still keep in touch. And it's funny, I was just texting him about my golf stroke that he's in my ear. Like don't let some instructor get in your head. And that's Brett. Everything is keep it simple. Really, his foundation and methodology is a simple approach of rinse and repeat, recover, rinse and repeat, and that's where the foundation came from, and the idea really came from. But in terms of like people that overcomplicate it, that's just it. Like you're trying to get people not to overthink too much, because human beings do that, right, by nature. Some more so than others. Others are great. But the reality is, you've had to use technology as an amazing tool. So adopting things like the GPS watches and the power meters, and Training Peak software, for example, analyzing the data, using Workout Builder. You've got to use these things nowadays. So we try and protect people from living and dying by the numbers, and not obsessing and tracking every minute of their day and every calorie. Because by and large, unless your income depends on finishing in the money, you don't really want the sport to consume your life. You want it to complement your life, and that's why most people got into triathlon, right? Is to better their lives and be an example for their family, friends, and neighbors, and not be some weirdo that's walking around staring at their watch, counting their steps, and out to dinner like, oh my God, I've got to stop eating because I'm at my 856 calorie because the watch told me, So we preach balance is essentially what we're about.
Nice. Carrie, when you won Ironman Mont Tremblant, I remember you saying, I had one of those very rare days when almost nothing went wrong, and those days are the exception, not the rule. Can you share with us a list of things that have gone wrong in some of your other races and how you've dealt with them? Because I think a lot of athletes think that for a lot of professionals, the race is like things don't go wrong. And it was so nice to hear you say that actually that's super rare, where you have a day where not too many things go wrong.
Yeah, I honestly think that any professional triathlete, if you ask them that same question about how many days have you had in your career where, things have just gone exactly how you've wanted them. I mean, some people might say never, it's never happened. Other people, I think they can't count them, they'll only be able to count them on one hand, if that. So they are very rare. The perfect days are very, very rare. But when they happen, it's one of those days. But I mean, there's been so many races, Chris, where I've dropped nutrition. In Ombrun one year, I ran out of transition, out of the swim, got out onto the bike, went up the first hill, and realized I left all of my nutrition in my transition box. Like, I'm like, oh my God. And it's a course where, you know, there isn't an aid station every 5 or 10 miles. Like, you're out there on your own. There are aid stations, but it's not the normal food that you get either. So I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going out on a 6 to 7 hour bike ride and I've got nothing. Nothing. So I've done that. I've dropped nutrition. I've
what about crashing?
Had flat tires. In Umbrum I've crashed.
And broke her aero bar. She broke her aero bar, so rode
Umbrum as well. The first year I did it, I flatted. Then I was going down another descent and my brakes failed. I was on the old P5 with the hydraulic brakes, and they had been kind of playing up a little bit all summer, and I had to get them bled a few times. And then, of course, during the race that they decided to freeze up because it was raining as well. It was like, this is why I don't want to go back to Umbrum. You should be hard. And I was going down the descent and I had to unclip and, you know, like put my foot down to try and stop because the brakes weren't working. So I've had plenty of stuff go wrong. But dealt with it pretty confidently. So I think that's when you ask, you know, how do you deal with it when, you know, things go wrong? I think, I mean, they don't always go wrong in training. That's the thing. You can train perfectly and then just not be prepared, you know, for what gets thrown at you. But I think if you try and stay calm and just, you know, just deal with, you know, what's happening in that moment and just be confident in whatever you do that's what you've done, that's the decision you made, and just move on and then deal with what happens after that. But nothing you can do about them, right? So
you improvise and
overcome.
That's what Brett would always say to us.
I know.
Improvise and overcome.
It's easy to say, but in the moment, you know, it's, you know, you just have to do with, you know, what you can do at the time. Mm-hmm. And if you're out of luck, then you've got to hijack home.
What did you do about dropping your nutrition?
In Umbra, when I left it in the transition box, I just had to start. Whenever I saw an aid station, I had to pull in and just take whatever they had, and that was it for the bike course. I think I actually had bottles. In my bottles, I had quite a few calories, so I was like, okay, well, at least I knew where I was. Kind of in the race to be able to get stuff, and I knew kind of how much I needed to try and get. But the bars weren't our usual, you know, Gatorade bars, or like they were like fruit and nut.
I was thinking like ham sandwiches.
It wasn't, but that's all they had. So yeah.
You know, with like when people talk a lot in the whole sport about, you know, dropping their nutrition and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about your process of knowing like how you were going to replace what you'd lost? Like, did you know like, oh, I need to get in X amount of grams of carbohydrate, or was it something, like tell us a little bit about how you knew how to adjust.
Firstly, I'll say, I know people always say like you should always put that extra bag of nutrition in your special needs bags and things, but not everyone does that. So I know it's a mistake that when you don't do that, but anyway, it happens. I always sit down before races and kind of map out. I have the numbers in my head of, you know, how much nutrition numbers I kind of need over the bike ride. And I've just worked that out over the years with kind of what works for me, what feels good, what feels bad. And I have a number that usually I work by, like carbohydrates per hour. Like what's a good number of carbohydrates per hour for me that's going to work? And I will mix that up between liquid and gels. So I know if I drop my gel flask, okay, well, I've got 1,000 calories in there, and that's what I have to replace. So I did that in Kona 2019. I dropped my nutrition flask about 30 minutes into the bike and had to replace 700 calories. So that seemed like it was easy to do, but I kept missing the gels and things. So it's not always easy to find what you want at the aid station when you're in a group of people as well. So you kind of have to take what you can get. So yeah, it's just knowing the numbers of what I've got.
So you guys have done some races that are kind of not your typical triathlete fare. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your favorites that are maybe off the beaten track a little bit, and what drew you to those?
On 2-man?
Yeah, well, like Kaz was saying, I spent 8 summers over in Switzerland. So you primarily race. We were drawn towards France because there's so many other options, but it probably started with the Alpe d'Huez trip that Brett Sutton sent us on every year. We ride from the village in Lausanne, 2 days over the Alps through Chamonix, and then you'd race and then ride home. So we did that 3 or 4 times with Brett, and then we carried the tradition on. And that sort of planted the seed that there are these really cool events out there, such as Alpe d'Huez, and then Ironman is a few weeks after that, and Long 2-man has now spawned probably off the back of Alpe d'Huez, the Deauville Triathlon, and of course Nice is an iconic race with a massive climb and several climbs actually and descents where it takes the complete athlete to win. You know, you've got to be good at everything. So they're real adventures, and it makes it a lot more exciting than going around kind of a flatter, safer course.
I think Brett actually sent a couple of us for 2 years. So it's actually the same race director from Ironman. He put on a race in Koh Samui in Thailand, and I did that twice. And they paid actually very well. Ironman pays pretty well, very well as well. So that was one of the other races that Gerald would put on, and you know, he'd put you up in one of the hotels, which either one were beautiful. You know, it was either the Four Seasons or one of the other, you know, all inclusive hotels in Koh Samui. And my parents actually came and met me there one year to watch the race. It was the second time I did it. So yeah, that was a real adventure, that one.
Brett would find the races where there was money, and all the French races have money. They put up a purse, and this one particular gentleman, Gerald, who we've joked that if we're ever able to buy a house here in San Diego or somewhere else in the world, that we were going to name a room the Gerald Ionacone room, because you know, he's been very generous with his money, and all the prize money comes from the entry fees. Which is amazing.
That is amazing.
And we're talking big money.
Yeah.
You know, 20,000 euro for the women for the win, and then I think 30,000 for the men. And the reason he pays the men more than the women is because there's 1,100 men and about 100 women, and he says, you know, the money comes from the entry fees. So, and again, it's a mass start. Women go first, and then women, and then the men. So that's his reasoning, right or wrong. That's just what he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally putting his money where his mouth is, because that prize purse is just a direct hit on his profit margin.
Yeah.
You know, it's like super different, because normally you'd get a sponsor to put up the prize purse.
Yeah.
What is the vibe like at those races? If you had a California athlete who was headed out to race there, what would you tell them to expect?
Well, we ride the mountains here, which is why we live here. You know, we have Mount Palomar. The mountains east of San Diego will prepare you for any race in the world, for sure. I mean, Chris Horner used these same climbs, same roads to prepare for the Vuelta. But there's a cultural thing, which maybe you can talk about.
Well, I mean, they're very passionate. You know, they're very passionate about triathlon, and they're really respectful of these big races like Ironman and Alpe d'Huez. Like, if you speak to anyone and you tell them that you've, raced these races, and if you've done well at them, they're very respectful of you. And they're very, supportive of everyone on course, because they know like how hard the courses are. So it's just a really different, I don't know, it's just a different vibe to the other race, to just maybe a normal Ironman race where everyone's there to go fast, and it's kind of, each for their own kind of sometimes, well, a lot of the time those races, but the French racers are a little more, everyone's there for the challenge, So
maybe not as serious.
They're not as serious, but they're there for the challenge, So
all the people that we bumped into the races there seem to be really into this like shared experience.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
We are going to do this shared endurance adventure together.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this is wonderful. this is nothing
really
like
cool.
this in North America except for Montreal.
It's probably because there's no qualification for a world championship. It's just simply about conquering the course.
Yeah.
Which is what the sport, how it began, right? People went to Hawaii and it was just, let's see who can do this.
I love it.
If people wanted to kind of recreate your guys' like summer in Europe's, like what advice would you give them? Like if an athlete was like, I'm going to go do that, what are some of the things that you would say? Like, oh, don't forget to blank.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. What do we bring over, right? Like, I don't know. It's a tough one, dude. I would just, you can't answer that one question. I'd be like, I would say, call me and I'll talk you through it. But base yourself there. Go over, kind of like what you and Amy did, where you went and you spent time. Go there and get to know the roads, because the roads are narrow, right? The drivers are very respectful, but there's no shoulders. The bike lanes are in the valley, but when you go up into the mountains, you're out on tiny little roads.
I definitely recommend doing some research on places where you want to base yourself. Like it's definitely important to have a base. But yeah, do your research on places that, you're interested in. And then from there, if you can tie it into some races over there where you can go and, see different parts. Because most places in Europe, depending on where you base yourself, in the summer, there's plenty of stuff happening within driving distance, and everyone, drives, or you can get the train. Like they've got an awesome train system. So,
and your ability to descend is a make or break decision. If you can't go down a hill, do not.
You definitely have to be comfortable riding in the mountains.
All right, viewers out there.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's very intimidating when you haven't been there and you're going down a mountain, and all of a sudden you go to take a corner and there's nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
High consequences.
Right.
High consequences.
But okay, viewers, you heard it here. Call Scottie Defillipis, travel agent, and
I would love to talk about it.
Which one's your
and
favorite?
Then stay tuned. Maybe we'll do a camp one year where we.
That's a
bring
great
people
idea.
over and, yeah.
It's a great idea. Which one's your favorite? Which one would you tell people not to miss?
Which is our favorite race?
Yep.
I think Alpe d'Huez is the greatest triathlon festival in the world.
Oh, cool.
Roth is up there, amazing. Just a little bit different. Riding your bike, if you love the bike, going to that part of France is like going to Oahu if you're a surfer. There's so much history. It's just a wonderful experience. So I love the annual trip that we take, and this might be 2 years where we don't go, but I would say Alpe d'Huez. Cass?
Yeah, Alpe d'Huez is my love-hate. Like 100%. Every year that I've done it, well, firstly I've said I'm not going to do it, and I always end up doing it. But it's always been my love-hate, just because it is really hard. But there's so many unique things about the race that are really cool. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning.
9:30.
9:30, sorry. And it starts at the lake, at the altitude is the lake at?
Probably 1,500 feet.
So, you know, a lot of people stay in the village in Alpe d'Huez. So in the morning, you see everyone riding down the mountain to the swim start. And then, yeah, it's.
And then you obviously do this ride, which is like 120 Ks, where you go over 2 other mountain passes, and then you finish on top of the Alp, which is 6,200 feet.
I mean,
and then you run up there.
It's intimidating at first when you think like at the end of the bike. I mean, you're approaching the end of the bike. You only have 12 kilometers to go, which is what, 8 miles? How much is what?
7.5 miles.
7.5 miles, but it's uphill.
Up Alpe d'Huez.
So you think you're almost done, and climbing that can take anywhere from, well, the men climb it in what, 50 minutes? The pro men.
And Danielle Riff.
And Daniela climbed it in about 50 minutes.
Something minutes, yeah.
But, you know, it can take you that long if you have a great day. If you have a bad day, it can take, you know, an hour and a half if you need, you know, 2 stops up the Alp. And then you have to run up there. So it's just interesting, like how the day plays out. Like it's cool.
It sounds so hard.
When we went over,
it's really hard.
the first few years of the trip, Brett took, he had done 1 or 2 years with a group, but my first year, we rode. The way you ride in, you come through Chamonix, and then you go up the back side of Alpe d'Huez, the way that you would ride down in the morning, and he wouldn't let people see the climb. He didn't want anyone to see the climb before the race.
Oh, wow.
He didn't want them to freak out. He's like, don't worry about it. It's just like in Lausanne, because in Lausanne, the only way home every day, you had to climb the mountain. So that's what he would tell people. Just pretend like you're riding up the mountain and you're going to do a little runoff.
A little 20K runoff at 6,200 feet.
Oh, wow.
Which I imagine is also not flat up there.
Not flat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the worst. It is literally the worst you will ever feel running off the bike. I think. Nothing tops that. It's awful because, I mean, you're tired just from riding that type of course. But you know what it feels like when you're just running it out. I mean, you've got no legs. There's no legs. And the course is up and down. It's uneven. It's horrible.
So hard.
Love-hate. That's my love-hate.
I was like, you're really selling this.
Oh, no, it's a great course. But oof, that run. Horrible.
So both of you guys have been involved in the Professional Triathletes Organization, which has really obviously taken off in a big way in the past year. Could you talk a little bit about both of your roles within that organization?
I'll go first because I have a much lesser role. But I was lucky enough to be a part of the early discussions of the PTO back in Bahrain. 2014, I think that was the year. And since then, I've just been an active member of the PTO, and I was again lucky enough to meet Michael Moritz in San Francisco in January last year when the PTO really took off and got legs. So that's simply my role. You know, I'm an athlete and a proud member of the PTO, but Scottie has much more of a role in the PTO.
Well, Kaz was there in Bahrain. What happened was basically Zibi and I don't remember if Felix was there or not, but they sat all the athletes down and said, you guys have to get yourselves organized, like, because you're just being underserved. So they asked who would want to be on a board, and a bunch of us raised our hands and said, yeah, we would absolutely want to get involved, and that was the PTU that formed, which unfortunately we just weren't able to get off the ground. We didn't have the right leader. And then a few years later, this guy by the name of Charles Adamo knocked on our door. Like literally, he notified us and said, hey, I'm interested in trying to resuscitate the PTU. And Carrie, you were here, and he sat us down and laid out the Collins Cup for us. And then we went. He took us. We were involved at a meeting at Fox Sports in Los Angeles. We went and listened to Charles pitch to them the idea of televising the Collins Cup, which will happen here in late August. And then his vision for what it can become, which is basically modeled off of tennis and golf, right? So anyways, Charles got the founding board members, which I was one of, and asked us if we wanted to kind of help him. And yeah, I've been helping him, more of a sounding board, but now that we're up and off the ground, we have meetings every month. We went and met Mr. Moritz, and I'm the treasurer, actually. I was the original treasurer, so Charles asked me to stay on as the treasurer. So that was actually really, really a fulfilling and an incredible job during the pandemic, because we paid out close to $2 million to athletes, and I had to send the money, and so I'm sitting there knowing, gosh, these guys and gals are going to lose a whole year of no racing. Sponsors aren't paying, but we're sending them money, and even if it's $5,000, I know it went a long ways to bridge the gap for people, or even in some cases just allow people to have time to figure out what was next, because lots of athletes have been retired. So yeah, it's super special. It's an honor to be a part of it, and I guess a new board will be voted in at the end of this year, and I'll stay on one more year as treasurer, and then likely pass that on. But hopefully I'll still be able to be involved. We're working with a anti-doping expert out of the UK, so we have a committee that's formed, and we're trying to start our own anti-doping program, which takes time.
Yeah.
You have to be super patient and go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. So hopefully we'll have some news on that too in the next foreseeable future, next 2-3 months.
And what is it about triathlon that a professional triathlon union would solve? When the person said you guys have to get organized, what were they talking about?
Well, I think Charles's vision was simply production, broadcast, getting triathlon on TV. And for the longest time, people told us that no one wanted to watch it. No one wants to watch triathlon on TV. Some of us disagreed. Charles certainly disagreed. So he looked at the numbers for women's golf and had this benchmark of, if we can get those numbers, we can sell this to non-endemic sponsors, Mercedes-Benz, Rolex, those types of banks, right? So we've proven that there is that kind of viewership out there, and there is an appetite for triathlon on television, and then having majors, which is what we're trying to do, is having majors around the world with big money put up, obviously worldwide television.
So what do you hope it looks like say 10 years from now? What is if you guys were to execute the vision that you have of triathlon, what does it look like in 10 years at a professional level?
Yeah, 4 majors and the Collins Cup, with big purses, but then also having developmental races where, you've seen this last year where we're putting money into smaller races, and most of that money is going to developing athletes, helping them bridge the gap to be able to go and race an Ironman Oklahoma that's coming up, having a race a few weeks before, or a race a few weeks before Coeur d'Alene, for example. There's going to be one in Arizona. So there's different programs that we want to have, a set of rules, anti-doping program that's transparent, where we can see, everyone knows exactly who's being tested, and that it's all on the up and up.
So
20-meter
draft zone? You didn't get enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Chris, that you bring that up, because we've done that in both the Daytona race and Miami. Challenge seems to have adopted it. Ironman isn't really interested, I guess, at the moment. No one really spoke about that at St. George. I thought it was interesting that none of the pros were like, hey, why aren't we doing the 20 meters like we've proven that can work in the last 2 events? Now, the difference is both Daytona and Miami, the pros had their own racetrack. There weren't other athletes on the course, so maybe Ironman has a safety issue they've got to be mindful of, or a lack of being able to have enough officials So hopefully, certainly in Hawaii, it would be great to see a 20 meter and maybe 70.3 worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Time will tell. You know, we would love to have Ironman sit down with us and talk about these things. Time will tell, and you know, time will tell if one of their events is a part of one of our majors. We'd love to have that, but they've got to be willing to give a little.
Yeah. Yeah, because the fields are huge now, right? I mean, 79 men on the start list at St. George. Carrie, there were, I think, close over 60 women on the start line. So like something's got to happen with the drafting rules.
Yeah, and I think those fields were inflated because there just aren't a lot of races with pro purses at the moment. But hopefully, yeah, the PTO can, you know, break that field up, and there'll be a qualification for an event of that caliber where it's a U.S. Championships. You know, having a certain ranking gets you into that race, and then the athletes that wanna make it to there, but they're not quite ranked high enough. Well, they could race the week before, the week after at Gulf Coast or at Chattanooga or something. You know, that would be the ultimate goal, Chris.
I love it. It's been a long time coming. You know, it'd be nice to. I mean, I think the drafting regulations have been too lenient for too long.
Yeah,
you know, and it's a bummer. You know, I mean, it looks good on TV, but it doesn't. It underserves the athletes.
For sure.
So what were some unanticipated challenges in setting up the PTO and getting it started, or in the experiences that you've had with it so far? What was something that you were like, I was not expecting that to be a challenge? Like, where have you seen, where have you had to put energy?
Finding an investor, obviously, but that was Charles. You know, when he walked out of the room, he was here in our house, at that table, and he left, and I said to Kaz, I looked her in the eyes and said, this is the guy that we've been waiting for, that the sport's been waiting for, and he is going to change it. I'm convinced. And he's proven that, you know, my hunch was right. And I don't think he'll give up until the sport is sustainable and profitable, and because he's the chairman, right? He'll walk away and go, okay, I'm leaving this now to the athletes. Right, and that's the big difference is the athletes are 50% shareholders in all of our events, and that's something that, you know, now that I'm retired, I don't want to. I'm not bashing Ironman or their brand, but I personally feel that the professionals are due a percentage of that pie, right, of the trademark, of the merchandise sales and the what was the last Ironman that was who's the last sponsor? Remember, Amazon came in the last minute and sponsored Kona.
Well, Vega.
And Vega, you know, it's the Vega Ironman broadcast. Well, you're broadcasting these professionals. Why are they not getting a piece of the pie? The purse in Hawaii hasn't gone up since 2010, maybe longer. Right, and the money tree is there. I mean, maybe not this year. They obviously are struggling financially. They'll be fine. They have a big backing, but I think, it's been a long time coming that the pros, who are the custodians of the sport, as Brett would always say, are due a little bit of a piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for doing that work, both you guys, and making that and getting this off the ground, because, you know, I know that all of us, like, it's a struggle, like, and that for this to actually become a viable sport for the athletes would be life-changing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, back to less businessy stuff. Both you guys were amazing runners before you became triathletes. Carrie, I didn't know that you were a sprinter, but you went to the Olympic trials for the 100 meter and the 200 in 2000. And Scottie, 4-year varsity letter man in college, Division I. Where did you run?
University of Tennessee.
That's right, University of Tennessee. What advantages did your running backgrounds bring you to the sport when you picked up triathlon?
I think mine brought me my legs. I have been blessed, I guess, although I feel that I'm not blessed because, you know, if you have muscular leg for the women, if you'll know what I'm talking about, you know, we have trouble fitting into jeans, like it's a problem. Pants are a problem. So anyway, my sprinting days brought me, it gave me my cycling legs. I have strong legs, and I definitely been able to use them, I think, for cycling. I don't really know if any of my aerobic fitness from sprinting really helped me with anything, but maybe just the discipline of training, just the work, you know, just the training sessions. So, but yeah, definitely just, I got sprinters legs. Scottie keeps saying when I'm retired that he's going to try and get me to go for the, what did you want me to do? The speed skating in the Olympics?
She's got the perfect body.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh yeah, thanks. So just so my legs and my quads get even bigger, and I'm really going to like how that feels and looks. Thanks.
No pants.
No pants.
Okay.
Scottie?
I mean, I still am a skinny runner, even though I don't think I've run in over 2 months now. Funny enough, I got stung by a bee last week, and my whole left quad got really swollen, and I was running around showing cats. I'm like, look how big my leg is. I always wanted it to be this big. But for me, I mean, it was more of a mental thing, like the running and the sessions that we went through and that I give out to the athletes now, the big running sessions. They mentally were easier to wrap my head around. You know, running 50, 60 miles a week was easy compared to you know, running 100, 120 miles a week, which I was doing when I was a marathon runner. But I thought I was going to come into the sport and I was going to run 240, like, no problem. But I didn't really comprehend how much the swim and the bike would take out of me. So it took me 3 years of getting that swim and bike strong enough so that I could get off and run. And even then, the whole nutrition side was, you know, gosh, I don't think I figured it out until the end. Mm-hmm. If I would have known in my earlier years how much fuel was required on the bike, I would have done, my trajectory would have been a little bit easier. So I just think it comes down to, and maybe my body holding up, right? I could handle sessions that were like, you know, 15 times a mile or 30 times 800, or running a marathon was in training, you know, it was like no big deal because I had plenty of running inside of me.
What led each of you to make the transition from the run world into triathlon?
For me, I've had stopped running before I found triathlon. I think I stopped when I was about 19, and actually worked in a insurance company in Brisbane, where I'm from, Australia. So yeah, I mean, I didn't see a career for myself, you know, as a runner. Like I was never going to make it, you know, as an elite sprinter. So for me in school, you know, it was something that I was always good at. I had a natural talent for it in school, and then, you know, I stuck with it for just a little bit longer. But once I got to 19, I was like, I'm not going to be doing anything with this, and I really actually lost interest in it. So yeah, I went into the workforce and kept myself fit. I just went to the gym. I entered in some fun runs every now and then. I think that was actually like the first time I ever kind of got into a little bit endurance running. I entered some 10-kilometer fun runs in Brisbane, and that was all. I mean, I did to keep myself fit, but yeah, I didn't find triathlon, I think, until I was 24. I mean, I didn't even really know that much about it. I was never into it. While I was sprinting, that's all I did. You know, I wasn't interested in, you know, I mean, I think there were some people that did do triathlon when I was, you know, in high school, but I just wasn't interested in it. Didn't even really follow it much, you know, through, you know, I mean, we had a little bit of it on TV. We had, Brad Bevan, and I remember watching Welchie race at some of the local series.
At me like
yeah, I'm thinking, I'm like, do you remember that? I'm like, I remember watching them on TV, but I just never had an interest in it. But yeah, when I was 24, I think when I was going to the gym, I met some ladies there that were doing it for fun, and I just kind of got into it socially with them, and I'm still doing it.
Well, it's pretty easy when you win your first Ironman like I did.
Mm-hmm. That helps.
Yeah, I mean, I got into it for the social side of it. I didn't get into it, when I was in school, like for the athletics of it. I didn't find it until later when it kind of fit in with my life and what I was doing.
Well, just like every age group athlete that's
yeah,
working.
I'm the age group athlete.
Who stayed, right? Because have you continued to love the sport? I imagine you probably did, and I'm wondering, do you still love the sport at this point?
I mean, I do. It's I've definitely had moments, over the last couple of years where, I haven't felt like I just wanted to do the work anymore. It's hard, as you know, the work that you have to put in. To race an Ironman and to race an Ironman well, it becomes exhausting, when you've been in the sport for 15 years. So I think I've definitely had moments where I've, wanted to throw in the towel over definitely the last, 2018 and 19, I can remember, moments that racing actually, that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So, but I've always, once I find my groove, and once I find, that confidence again in training, and I'm just going through the process, I still love it. I don't like it when I'm unfit, but that's the time that I really do struggle with it. Just when you're unfit and you're just trying to find your groove in that training block. And I always know that the longer that you keep doing it, it will come back. But yeah, I still love it. I still love the feeling of it.
And Scottie, how did you make your way from Division I runner to professional triathlete?
Well, as a kid, I used to watch the Iron War, and then I'd go in the backyard and put on a mock triathlon. But I couldn't swim, so I'd do these triathlons in our above ground pool in my swimmies. And I was a BMX kid. Rad was my favorite movie, and my father used to take us on cycling trips in Vermont. So I'd watch the Tour de France. I don't know, I'd watch the bike racing. My brother was a runner. I couldn't swim, but then I saw this Iron War. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So it was something that was always in the back of my mind, like triathlon. It's really cool. I'd watch it on TV every October, or I guess it was on in December, right? And then I was a lifeguard in my teens, and one of the older lifeguards was a triathlete, and he was like, "Have you ever thought about doing triathlon?" And well, yeah, actually, I used to watch it on TV, and so he helped me get a bike and taught me how to swim properly, and then I came out here to San Diego in 1998. 2002, right before my senior year of college, 2002. As part of USA Triathlon's early days of their high performance recruitment program. I was one of the first ones that had an opportunity to come and try out, and they accepted me, and I went to Claremont when they built the training center, the National Training Center. It was just built, and a small group of us were lucky enough to spend a summer there, and then our coach unfortunately wanted to move back to Colorado. Not unfortunately, it actually worked out great for him. But I followed him, but then I couldn't wrap my head around the ITU cost of flying, just the whole points chase thing. And I never thought I could swim. Like I was swimming with Mike Doan's group in Colorado Springs, like just getting pummeled by these 11 and 12-year-old girls. I'm like, how am I ever going to be any good at this? And maybe a little bit of a shock first time at altitude. So anyways, long story short, I went back to running, and then as the life evolves. I fell into Brett Sutton and was looking for a new challenge, and yeah, he gave me a shot to try long course racing, which I didn't want to do at 23, but at 28 I was ready for it. Yeah, and that's what led me eventually to Cass, because we met 4 years later. Hey.
Where did you guys meet?
In Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brett had a camp in Mooloolaba, and Carrie was living there.
That kind of brings us to probably our last question of the day. I can't believe this hour in detention has gone by real fast. So you guys are married. Scottie, you coach Carrie, and that can be tough. And do both of you have any advice for people out there who might find themselves in that same environment where like one member is sort of helping or encouraging and the other person is taking the coaching? So what advice would you have for people that are either coaching their partners or being coached by their partners?
It's not easy. Yeah. Well, it's gotten easier. It's certainly gotten easier. Like now it's like, yeah, Kaz trusts me 100%, right? I mean, I don't want to take words in your mouth, but not everybody can pull it off. I would say I've had some incredible mentors who prepared us, that has enabled us to allow it to work. In Brett and Siri Lindley and Jerry Rodriguez, who's still our swim advisor. All three of them were probably pretty instrumental in that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, we have had a pretty successful, did you start coaching me? 2014?
13, I think.
Yeah, so
yeah,
we've been, I guess, partners for...
Except for when we went to Siri for about a summer. And that was great. That was a really good time.
I think as Scottie has, as he's transitioned, I guess, you know, as a coach, just to a coach, you know, and he's not racing as well, that's easier on us when, you know, we go out to train, and then, you know, it's not that the focus is on me. I feel like it's freed him up as well mentally, because he's not thinking about his own training and he's got to be going, you know, at this level or whatever, because, you know, he's still trying to get there. You know, he's still trying to hit his own numbers and do his own training. So that, you know, taking that stress off him, that's been, you know, helpful, you know, in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. But I think, yeah, we have always, I think we've managed it very well.
I think if both are racing, the male ego has to understand that you can be a supporter of your partner and still race really well. But then there's also going to be days where, you know, you've got to go do your thing and she should be doing her thing, right? So that's a big one, like check your ego some days for sure. And then if the other one, you know, like if one is racing and the other one isn't racing, that's new to us, but yeah, I guess it's going pretty well.
I think the other thing that really helped us too was that we actually do get help externally. You know, we take our swim sessions from Jerry Rodriguez at Tower 26. So we started training with Jerry 5 years ago. We started doing we signed up his program 5 or 6 years ago now. So that took the pressure off both Scottie and me to, you know, come up with the swim sessions, and we weren't trying to, you know, overpower each other in any of the swims. It's like, this was the session, we just go and do it. So that having those external kind of coaches where, you know, he takes his coaching hat off, like, and we just go and do the session, it really helps.
The swim for us wasn't really our field of expertise. So having Jerry, to be honest with you, Jerry really put the finishing touches on our coaching relationship, because he came in, and that's really when we figured out a system where the swim and the bike and the run gelled really well, and Kaz went from kind of a second, third pack to just off the first pack, and in Hawaii being in that group, right, which was that really made your career and set you up the last few years. Yeah, but I think one other tip would be to bring in if you're able to bring in other athletes. So we have a little squad here now, and we're trying to grow with some developing athletes, having other people to train with, to talk to, and take the pressure off of your relationship. Definitely bring friends in or other local people to train with. That helps a lot,
And when the training session's done, it's done.
It's over.
Walk away, done.
In our case, open the wine.
Open wine. Do whatever you have to do. Take a long bath. Relax, but it's done.
Okay, so we will definitely put a note out there that if you need triathlon couples advice and travel agency, you too, this is the next thing. This is what it's going to be.
I see a future in this.
We love to give back.
Well, Carrie Lester and Scottie Defillipis, thank you so much for coming and joining us here at the Endurance School for what has been a very enjoyable detention. This has been a lot of fun, and we really appreciate the time that you took to come and talk to all of us here. For those of you who are joining us out in Endurance School world, don't forget, this week we do not have a Thursday morning spin because Chris and I are both traveling. Chris is heading to Tulsa. I'm heading to Chattanooga. It's going to be an interesting time had by all, but we will see you back here in this same place next week. Carrie and Scottie, thank you again. This has been amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye, everybody.